Imagine being like the most powerful person on the entire planet, right? You're ruling this unstoppable empire, only to completely lose your mind and end up, I mean, literally end up living out in the woods, eating grass like a wild animal.
Yeah, it's just such a visceral, wild image.
It really is. And that is the ultimate cost of unchecked human pride, at least according to the fascinating set of notes we've got on the table today.
Exactly.
So welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today we are exploring a transcript of a lesson delivered by a speaker named Nick Williams, and it's titled Life, Breath, and Everything Else.
A really profound piece of source material.
It is. And the mission of our deep dive today is to explore this, well, this really timeless fundamental psychological battle, the clash between human pride and humility.
Right, and what's so amazing is how the source material unpacks all of this. It does it through this really intricate weaving of ancient biblical narratives.
Yeah, it's a masterful look at human nature.
Totally, because, the text uses these ancient stories, but the core psychological tension is, well, it's incredibly modern.
Oh, for sure.
It explores how we perceive our own success, how we handle authority, and the very subtle ways that pride just sort of sneaks into our daily lives without us even realizing it. The speaker posits that this isn't just some ancient historical problem, but rather it's a structural flaw in the human ego.
Yeah, and before we get into, like, the ancient kings and the grand empires and all that, there's this incredibly charming detail right at the beginning of the transcript that I think perfectly sets the scene.
Oh, the origin story.
Yes. So the speaker is addressing a church congregation, right?
Yeah.
And it's this massive, globally reaching organization today that supports people all across the world. But he notes that it actually started with just 5 people.
Just 5.
5 people in the back of a barber shop and, like, in people's living rooms in a place called area.
And that contrast is just essential to the whole theme of the text.
Yeah, how so?
Well, you have this massive, expansive, modern entity, right? But its foundation is unbelievably humble. It immediately asks you to consider the origins of the things you've built or the institutions you're a part of.
Right.
We so often look at the shiny skyscraper and completely forget the people who, dug out the dirt for the foundation.
Which leads right into why this matters for you, the listener. Because, I mean, whether you consider yourself religious or absolutely not, this source material offers a profound, piercing look at what we might call the Instagram-ification of our accomplishments.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. It's a warning about the danger of taking credit for things we didn't actually build, of looking at a massive empire and just totally forgetting the barbershop it started in.
It really forces us to ask a pretty uncomfortable question. Are we the solo architects of our own lives, or are we just standing on foundations poured by someone else? Or maybe by circumstances completely out of our control?
Exactly. I mean, it's one thing to crave a little recognition. We all do that.
Sure, it's natural.
But to understand the trap of this massive empire-level pride, the source material argues that we first have to look at how it starts on a micro level, in our daily habits.
Right, the small stuff.
Yeah, and the transcript goes straight to the book of Matthew, chapters 6, to look at the practice of fasting.
And according to the lesson, fasting is presented here as the ultimate test of hidden faith versus what the text calls the performative flesh.
The performative flesh.
Yeah. The speaker highlights that fasting isn't about looking somber or miserable to prove to everyone around you how devout you are.
Right.
In fact, the text argues that if you intentionally disfigure your face to show others you are fasting, you have already received your reward in full.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because it's such a relatable human flaw.
Oh, absolutely.
It's exactly like doing charity work. Say you go build houses for a weekend or something.
Right, a great thing to do.
It is.
Yeah.
But you make absolutely sure you have a camera crew there. Or, your smartphone is out, you're vlogging the whole thing, making sure to film it for your social media.
Yeah, making sure everyone sees it.
Exactly. If you are doing it for the likes, the source is basically saying those likes are the literal ceiling of your reward.
Yeah.
You've essentially cashed out your moral points for immediate social approval.
That is a perfect parallel. The speaker in the text actually calls this getting brownie points with men.
Brownie points, yeah.
And he contrasts this performative act with the true purpose of the discipline. The lesson presents fasting as a private way to subdue the flesh.
And what does he mean by flesh here?
Well, when the text uses the word flesh, it's really talking about our inherent human craving for status and comfort. It's the ego, basically.
Well,
The text argues we need a way to prioritize a relationship with the unseen. taking that performative urge and consciously silencing it.
Wait, let me make sure I'm getting this because I want to push back a little here.
Sure, go ahead.
Isn't it just human nature to want credit for hard work? I mean, if you do something good, it feels good to be recognized.
It does.
So where does the source draw the line between like healthy self-esteem and this toxic pride? Because the text actually calls this need for attention a form of idolatry, which, I mean, that feels like a really intense word for just wanting a pat on the back.
It is a strong word, definitely. But when the speaker uses the word idolatry here, he's really talking about the modern psychological trap of external validation,
Okay, meaning what?
meaning making a god out of other people's opinions. What's fascinating here is the mechanism of why we do this.
Right.
The text argues that the flesh inherently wants to be important. It desperately wants to be the center of the universe. So when you rely entirely on the applause of others to validate your good deeds, you are essentially worshiping that applause.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so fasting is presented not just as some dietary restriction, but as this forgotten psychological tool to actively conquer that need for an audience. It's like a daily hidden rebellion against our own ego.
So it's about proving to yourself that you can do something difficult without needing anyone else to validate it, which is incredibly hard to do. I mean, I know I struggle with that.
We all do.
But what happens when that exact same unchecked psychological need for applause is basically handed the keys to a global empire?
Well, that's where things get dangerous.
Because the narrative scales way up at this point.
It does. This is where we enter the book of Daniel, chapter 4, and we look at the story of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon.
Right.
We go straight from the private, micro-level struggle for humility
Yeah.
to the macro-level disaster of public arrogance.
And the imagery here is just wild. The king has this terrifying dream.
The dream of the tree.
Yes. He dreams of this massive, fruitful tree. It's so big that it literally reaches the sky. It's visible to the ends of the earth, and it provides food and shelter for every wild animal and bird.
A symbol of ultimate provision.
But then right in the middle of this beautiful, peaceful scene, a messenger comes down from heaven and just screams, "Cut down the tree."
Just a total shock.
Yeah, and they trim the branches, they scatter the fruit, and leave nothing but a stump bound with iron and bronze in the grass.
It is a really vivid, almost apocalyptic image of total collapse. You have this symbol of ultimate security, the tree, just violently dismantled in an instant. And it understandably terrifies the king.
But wait, this part of the source material genuinely confused me.
Oh,
Yeah, so the king wakes up terrified, and what does he do? He calls in all his worldly psychics, the sorcerers, the magicians, to interpret the dream.
right, the usual suspects.
Exactly. And of course, they all fail. But why on earth is the king wasting time with worldly psychics who already failed him in the past?
That's a great question.
I mean, the text explicitly points out that just 2 chapters prior, Daniel had successfully deciphered another completely unreadable dream for him.
He had.
Plus, the king already knew about the power of Daniel's God from the famous fiery furnace incident with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Oh, totally. He had all the evidence.
He had all the evidence that Daniel was the real deal. So why go to the fake psychics first?
What's fascinating here is how perfectly this illustrates human stubbornness and our preference for comfortable illusions. It is incredibly psychologically accurate.
How so?
Well, even with overwhelming past evidence of what actually works or where the truth actually lies, people will almost always turn to their echo chambers first.
Oh, I see.
Nebuchadnezzar goes to his psychics because those are the people he employs. They are essentially yes men who usually tell him what he wants to hear just to protect their own jobs.
So turning to Daniel requires submitting to an authority higher than his own.
Exactly.
It means admitting he doesn't have absolute control over his own court.
Precisely. If he goes to Daniel, he has to acknowledge that his own highly paid experts are useless, and that a captive from Judah holds the actual truth.
Which hurts the ego.
Huge blow to the ego. And when he finally does call Daniel out of sheer desperation, the interpretation is incredibly bleak.
It's bad news.
It's very bad. Daniel tells him point blank, "You, O king, are the tree. You have grown great and strong, but because of your pride, you are going to be cut down." The stump means his life won't be completely taken, but he will be driven away from human society to live like a wild animal for 7 years, eating grass, until he acknowledges that he is not the highest power in the universe.
It's the ultimate reality check. The king is given a direct, undeniable warning.
Unmistakable.
And after receiving this terrifying prophecy, the text says Nebuchadnezzar actually changes his behavior for a bit. He listens.
He does.
But the source uses this moment to reveal a fascinating and frankly kind of terrifying insight into human psychology regarding the passage of time and how we assess risk.
Yes, the narrative points out a very specific timeline that is absolutely crucial to the lesson. For 12 whole months after that warning, nothing happens.
Those months.
Yeah. The king is apparently on his best behavior during this whole period.
Which, I mean, we can all picture this. It's exactly like a kid who gets chewed out by their parents for doing something really wrong.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, yelled at really hard, maybe threatened with being grounded for a month. For the next week, that kid acts like an absolute angel.
Doing the dishes.
Yeah, making their bed, doing their chores without being asked, wouldn't dare step out of line. But as time passes, the conviction dulls.
It always does.
How does a delay actually rewire our brains like that? Why do we drift right back into the exact bad behavior that got us in trouble in the first place?
It comes down to how human beings process cause and effect. The text argues that God's timing is patient, but from a psychological standpoint, human beings completely misinterpret that patience.
Okay, meaning we take it as a pass.
Exactly. If we take an action and we don't feel immediate condemnation or instant karma, our brains literally start to unlink the action from the consequence.
We forget the danger.
We convince ourselves our actions weren't actually that bad to begin with, or that the warning was just some huge exaggeration.
Right, so a month goes by, nothing happens. 6 months go by, the king is thinking, hey, I'm still on the throne, the tree's still standing.
Yeah.
A year goes by, and he thinks that dream was just bad pizza. I'm completely fine.
The speaker in the text uses a really powerful phrase here. He says people think they are fine, not realizing they are dodging bullets they never knew about.
Man, that's intense.
It's the illusion of safety created by delayed consequences. The king reaps the benefits of his empire, feeling no immediate penalty from heaven, and that total lack of outward punishment breeds a profound arrogance. He mistakes a temporary grace period for a permanent pardon.
Dodging bullets they never knew about. That is such a chilling concept.
It really is.
Because it's that delayed consequence, right? That whole year of silence that gives Nebuchadnezzar the false confidence to make what becomes a fatal mistake. Which brings us to the climax of the story.
Yes, 12 months later, he steps out onto the roof of his royal palace in Babylon.
Right. He looks out over this massive, sprawling, beautiful empire, and he says the words.
Famous last words.
He says, "Is not this the great Babylon I have built as a royal residence, by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?"
It is the ultimate statement of self-made pride. Look at what I did. It's the ancient equivalent of the performative fasting we talked about earlier, just on a massive geopolitical scale.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The speaker, Nick Williams, drops a historical fact check right in the middle of the lesson that completely pulls the rug out from under the king's boast.
I love this part.
Nebuchadnezzar didn't even build Babylon.
The historical irony is staggering when you actually look at the timeline.
It really is. The source points out that the original Babylonian Empire was formed something like 1,500 years prior to Nebuchadnezzar.
Long before he was even a thought.
Right. He was rolling an offshoot, the Neo-Babylonian Empire. And even then, the heavy lifting, the real building of that specific iteration of the empire, was mostly done by his dad.
He just inherited the foundation.
He inherited the city. How can you stand on a roof you didn't design, looking at stones you didn't lay, and say, look at what my mighty power built?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text introduces an even deeper theological twist that goes beyond just family inheritance.
Oh, what's that?
The speaker references the book of Habakkuk, chapter 1, verse 6. In that text, the narrative explicitly states that God is the one raising up the Babylonians.
Oh, yes.
Yes. He describes them as a ruthless people, but explicitly states that he is using them as an instrument of judgment against his own rebellious people in Judah.
Wow. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar isn't the master architect at all. According to the source, he's just a hammer.
Exactly. The lesson posits that he is merely a tool in a divine plan. The king is taking credit for the master's handiwork.
That is wild.
He believes his tactical genius and his military might won the battles, when the text decides that the victories were handed to him to serve a larger, unseen historical purpose. He's boasting about a power that was only ever loaned to him. It's the delusion of the self-made man taken to its absolute extreme.
And the moment he takes credit for someone else's architecture, the moment those words, "look what I built," literally leave his mouth, that 12-month grace period instantly expires.
Right. The text notes that while the words were literally still on his lips, a voice came from heaven, decreeing that his royal authority was taken from him.
Just like that.
The illusion of control shatters in a single second.
The downfall is immediate and it is just brutal. It proves he doesn't even own his own mind or his own body, let alone a global empire.
He loses everything.
He is driven into the wilderness. The text says he eats grass like an ox, he is drenched in the dew of heaven, and he stays out there until his hair grows long and matted like eagle feathers and his nails grow out like bird claws.
He loses his humanity entirely.
It's horrid.
He becomes the wild animal from the dream. The man who thought he was a god is reduced to a beast of the field. It's the ultimate humbling, driven by the psychological reality that when you entirely detach from truth, the truth of your own limitations, you lose your sanity.
So what does this all mean? How do we synthesize all of this? Because the speaker heavily focuses on one specific visceral image to tie the fasting, the empire, and the madness all together.
Right.
And it's the imagery of breath.
Yes, the biological concept of breath is central to how the lesson concludes its argument about human reliance.
The source pulls from a few places. Genesis, where the text says God breathes the breath of life into the dust to make man. It pulls from Job, which says the breath of the Almighty gives life, and Acts, stating that God gives everyone life and breath and everything else.
All tying back to that core idea.
Yeah, and the supreme irony highlighted by Williams is that humans use the very breath given to them to boast against the giver. It is borrowed breath used to sing one's own praises.
It's a profound paradox. Think about it. The respiratory system is an involuntary biological mechanism.
Right, it just happens.
It keeps you alive, yet you have absolutely no ultimate control over it. You can't actively command your lungs to keep working while you sleep. Yet that unearned automatic gift is the exact same tool Nebuchadnezzar used to declare his independence and superiority.
He used borrowed breath to claim he built an empire he merely inherited.
Exactly.
And after 7 years of literal, animalistic madness, we finally get the resolution.
After those 7 years pass, the king finally does what he should have done on the roof 12 months prior.
He looks up.
He raises his eyes to heaven, he acknowledges the higher power, he praises the true architect, and instantly his sanity is restored. His honor, his splendor, and his kingdom are returned to him.
But the source stresses that this isn't just a neat little ancient story with a happy ending, right?
No, not at all.
It is a direct call to action for the listener. The speaker tells his audience that they have to wring that pride out of your heart daily.
This raises an important question, one the text really forces us to confront.
Which is?
Why do we rely on a constant need for a catastrophic crash to find our humility? Why do we have to lose the empire to realize we didn't build it?
That's a great point.
The speaker even admits his own struggle with this from the pulpit. He argues that pride grows and spreads like a cancer. If you don't actively have dominion over your ego, tying it back to the hidden discipline of fasting at the very beginning, the pride will just sneak back up on you.
Just like it did to Nebuchadnezzar during that 12-month period of silence.
Exactly.
It's a vicious cycle. You get humbled, you act right, you get comfortable, the silence tricks you into getting arrogant again, and then boom, you need to be humbled all over again.
Precisely. The goal presented by the source material is to break that cycle by recognizing daily, in private, that the kingdom, the accomplishments, and even the breath in your lungs belong to a foundation much older and much greater than yourself.
It is quite the journey we've been on today.
It really is.
I mean, we started with 5 people in a barbershop in area, looking at the private, unseen discipline of fasting and how we crave social media likes.
The performative flesh.
Right. And we follow that exact same psychological thread all the way to a king crawling on his hands and knees, eating grass like an ox, all because he took credit for a 1,500-year-old city he didn't even build.
It is a stark contrast in scale, but the psychological lesson is completely unified.
This deep dive really serves as a mirror for our own lives. We all have our own empires, right?
Of course we do.
Our careers, our status, our follower counts, our bank accounts, things we desperately want to stand on the roof and boast about. But the source material is practically begging us to remember where the foundation came from and who actually laid the stones.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on this idea of foundations.
Yeah, let's hear it.
We've spent a lot of time talking about how dangerous it is to take full credit for our successes when we didn't pour the concrete ourselves. But consider the flip side of that coin.
Okay.
If our greatest accomplishments and our sprawling empires are built on foundations we didn't pour, how does that change the way we should view our failures?
Oh, wow.
Right? If you can't legitimately take full credit for the success of the empire, maybe you don't have to carry the crushing weight of its collapse entirely on your own shoulders either.
Man, that is a question that will definitely stick with you long after you take your headphones off.
It's a lot to think about.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the foundations of your own empires, and we will catch you next time.